Welcome to the Cornish Shore Kayak Fisherman's YouTube channel. Now I know many of you out there will be just taking up this fantastic sport of kayak fishing that we do, and like I did 3 years ago when I first took it up as an extension to my shore fishing, you'll be searching the internet, looking at forums, blogs and YouTube, looking for ideas for your own kayak. This video is to go through my current setup in the hope that it might give you some pointers and ideas for your own kayak and for your own kayak fishing. First of all, got to talk about the kayak, and this kayak is an Ocean Prowler big game angler. It's about 12 foot 9 inches long and 34 inches wide. It's not noticed for its speed, but what it is noticed for is its stability, and it is an incredibly stable fishing platform to work from. You know, personally, with my experience, particularly out on the open ocean, if I was to choose between speed and stability, I would choose the stability every time. Over the last 3 years, I've added features to the kayak to suit my own fishing needs down here in Cornwall for the type of fishing that I do. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some of those features in the hope, as I say, that it may give you some useful ideas and pointers. Taking a look at the storage facilities on this kayak, looking, it's got a large front hatch or bow hatch, and what I use it for is easy access to my battery box and storing the kayak trolley wheels when I'm out fishing. Obviously that came with the kayak. Then we've got a centre hatch. This didn't come with the kayak, had to buy this separately, then cut out a suitable size hole and then fit it myself. But what I use it for is, let's open it up, I use it for storing a foldable fish bag for the catch. For larger fish, with a few blocks of ice in there, and also have a couple of washing up bowls, also packed with ice blocks for storing smaller fish such as mackerel, herring, etc. I also use this hatch for storing the anchor when I'm not using it. Okay, moving on. What we got here, this is I think it's called a flambeau or a flambeau waterproof marine box. I'm not so sure that it's waterproof if it was submerged, but I found it waterproof if you're out fishing in the rain. And what I use this for is for storing bits of fishing tackle. Let's open that up. Okay, it's got a tray at the top which I tend to store lures for easy access, and then inside for other bits and pieces that I need, and strapped down just behind the seat here. It's very useful when you want to just change tackle. Okay, the white box on the back here is known as a dry box. It didn't start its life as a dry box. Basically what it is, it's just a pet food container. I believe it's called a Victuals Vault. This is not my idea. This is an idea that I got when I was browsing the internet for ideas for storage. But personally I found it absolutely brilliant, and it's mainly used for storing anything that I want to keep dry, which could be spare clothing. I usually keep first aid in there, seasickness tablets, spare batteries, fuses, etc, etc. Anything you want to keep dry. It's empty at the moment, but it's plenty of room in there. And again, if you just turn from your seat side saddle on the kayak, it's very easy just to undo the lid and get out what you want. As I say, it started its life as a pet food container, so it doesn't come like this. I've had to fit the handle there, and I've also fitted 4 upright rod holders, and they're bolted with stainless steel screws, washers and nuts, with a bit of marine sealant to keep it watertight. So very, very useful for keeping the rods. And obviously it needs to be strapped down to the kayak, and it's strapped down with a mixture of webbing, buckles, stainless steel carbine hooks, using existing fittings on the kayak to actually strap it down. Bit of bungee cord here strapped around it, this is really useful, and what I tend to use that for is to just stack a bit of safety equipment, which I'm going to go through later on in the video. Things like a bilge pump and a paddle float on the back there, so that's quite useful for extra things like that. Okay, so that's the storage facilities on the kayak, and okay, so we'll move on and look at something else. Going to take a look at rod holders now. I've already talked about the upright rod holders, which is just to store rods when you're not using them. The kayak comes with these sort of flush mounted rod holders, which are really, when I first got the kayak, I only found them any good for the same things I used these for, which was just storing rods on the way out. But when it comes to fishing, you know, when you've got the rod in them, they point backwards, and even if you try and use them for trolling, it's a bit of a pain because you have to keep turning and looking backwards all the time. So I don't use them for that anymore. I use them for storing other things. But for actual fishing, when I'm fishing bait at anchor, which is a lot of people, what most kayakers do, is use these ram tubes. It's just a 1.5 inch ram ball which is secured to the kayak, and then the tube just sort of screws down onto that and is adjustable up and down. Now these tubes, they are great, but I've only find them any good for fishing at anchor, and for the reason for that is if you try to fish them, this is what I've personally found when trolling, so you'd have it out more to the side there. It doesn't matter how much you try and tighten the tube to the ball. When you're trolling, you get a take from a reasonable fish, and this tends to move. So that's just what I found personally. Others might have found different, but they are great tubes for fishing rods when you're at anchor with bait on the bottom. Okay, so that's those, got one each side. Okay, but for trolling, the one that I found is absolutely brilliant is this one is called a Scotty Orca rod holder, and it's got the height extender to try and keep it a bit higher off the water and easier for me to sort of grab it from the seat. Say this I use for trolling, but occasionally I do actually still use this at anchor. Now this one is absolutely brilliant because it's got a lock-in mechanism, so the rod actually locks in there, and when you get a take, because it's locked in, it doesn't go anywhere, and when you get the actual take, it very easily pulls out for you to play the fish, and then come back and locks back in again. So for trolling, that's the rod holder that I would recommend. Okay, so we'll move on. Okay, going to look at the anchor trolley now. Now when you're in a kayak, of course you cannot, unlike a boat, you cannot get up and move around. Therefore you need some sort of system to be able to position the anchor from your seat, and that system is what is known as an anchor trolley. Okay, so basically there's many different ways that people fit anchor trolleys, but what I've got at the bow here is this is a stainless steel carbine hook and a stainless steel pulley, and it's exactly the same at the other end of the kayak. Stainless steel carbine hook and a stainless steel pulley. When you fit these, my advice from mistakes I've made in the past is try and get, if you have to use new fitments like I've had to do here, this is a pad I've had to fit, at the back of the kayak is try and get that as close as you can to the bow and the stern as possible. If you think about a boat's anchor comes directly out of the centre of the bow. So a mistake I first made was using these existing pad eyes, which are quite a distance from the stern and the bow, and it didn't cause serious problems, but it caused one or two problems where it was anchored slightly sideways on. So my advice, if you can, is try and get it as close as you can to the bow or the stern. Alright, so the pulley, we got the anchor. This is about 5mm, I think it's 5mm cord. It's proper marine cord. It's threaded through the pulleys, and then what I've got here, you can just use a straightforward stainless steel O-ring, but I've got one of these twist swivel locks, I think they're called, and the idea being is that being it's on a pulley, you can manoeuvre it to your position in the seat, and then clip the anchor on, but I don't just use this for anchor. I use it for a drogue, or which I'm going to talk about later. And then once the anchor's clipped on and it's lowered down to the bottom, then you can just manoeuvre it from your seat to the bow, or to the stern, wherever you find it most suitable to position the anchor. Okay, so that's the main anchor trolley, which I've got positioned on the right hand side of the kayak because I'm right handed. But over on the left hand side of the kayak there's a half anchor trolley. This one is more or less exactly the same, but it ends about just by my seat here. And what I tend to use this for is sometimes you get a situation when you're anchoring and you've got a situation where the wind is wind over tide, where the wind is stronger than the tide, and what that tends to do, if you're trying to fish two rods, it tends to swing the kayak sideways on to the wind, and you sort of get the lines, so the lines, two lines, one each side of the kayak, positioned nicely down tide, that sort of skew with, and it's a bit awkward. You can, if the tide's strong enough, use this half anchor trolley to fit a drogue or a drift chute. So what the idea is, you've got the anchor positioned at the stern on one side of the kayak, and then the drift chute or drogue fitted on this side, on the other side, and basically all that, it's like an underwater parachute, and it'll pick up, as I say, the tide's got to be strong enough, it'll pick it up, and it'll swing the bow of the kayak more with the direction of the tide. Okay, so that's the couple of anchor trolleys that I've got. Okay, now taking a look at the anchor itself, it's made up on what we've got here. We've got a 1.5 kilo grapnel anchor. Then attached to that is about a metre of anchor chain, and the idea is that the weight helps it keep the anchor flush to the bottom. And then we've got a buoy. I'll explain what that's for at the moment, and in a moment. And then we've got an SMB diver's reel, and the end of that is attached to a stainless steel carbine hook, which attaches to the end of the anchor chain. On this there's about I think there's about 60 meters of anchor line. Okay, and then attached to this little connection here on the SMB reel is about 1.5 meters of anchor rope. And then we've got another stainless steel carbine hook. What I use on the end of that is just a short piece of bungee cord fitted to it. So the idea of that is, instead of having a little bit of bungee cord on the actual anchor trolley, I fit it to the just a little bit section to the end of the anchor rope there, and that gives a little bit of flexibility when the kayak is bouncing up and down on the sea there. You know, other people do it other ways. I found this way works. The bungee cord is more than strong enough to cope with the tides that I fish fish in. So the idea is then that this end is then connected to the anchor trolley here, and then it's manoeuvred either to the bow or to the stern, whichever is most suitable. Now what happens, what the buoy is for, this just runs free here. The anchor line runs free through that, and the idea is if you have to, for whatever reason, you have to disconnect the anchor quickly, you can disconnect it from the connection here and then just let it go, and what you do, the buoy will obviously float, and then you can come back and pick the anchor up if necessary. Reason for doing that would be safety. You've got to get off the anchor quickly, maybe because of a tide, or if you're playing a very, very large fish. Unfortunately, I've never caught any fish that large to have to do it, but I know some of them they do when they go shark fishing or tope fishing in this country. Sometimes they might have to disconnect the anchor to actually play the fish. Okay, so that's the anchor. Oh, one thing, just to say, there are many ways out there on the internet of doing this, but just to explain to you on the anchor here what this rope is for. What happens sometimes if you get the anchor caught in rough ground, in rocks, and you can't get it out, a lot of people have a weak link. This is usually connected direct to the shackle here by a weak link, and that breaks. But I didn't like that idea, so I picked this up off the internet, where you've got a bit of rope connected here, one end and there. And the idea is that if you're stuck and you're trying to pull the anchor from this end, what happens if you then paddle up tide against it, this then comes this way, and you're actually pulling from the other end of the anchor, and it's much more likely to free itself if you get stuck, caught in rough ground, and rather than try and pull it this way via a weak link. And I found that I've had to do that a couple of times, and I find it works really well. Just paddle up tide, so that this, then you're pulling from this end, and it's much easier to free the anchor if you have to do it. I don't know what this is called. I think it's related. It's called something like a bit like a horse's bit, similar to that. Okay, so now we're going to look at the drift chute. Now this, I have found, is one of the best purchases I ever made. Basically, all it is, it just acts like an underwater parachute. And as I say, I do a lot of drift fishing when I'm fishing, lure fishing from the kayak, drifting, and more that type of fishing than I do anchoring. And what this does, as I say, this is clipped to the anchor trolley, and then I find it really good to actually then manoeuvre it to the bow. And what that happens is it turns the bow of the kayak into the wind, and therefore position it at the stern. It turns the stern of the kayak into the wind, and if you're casting lures from a kayak, it means you are sitting in your seat then facing downwind. It makes it easier to cast. But if you're jigging in deeper water, then it's good to have it from the bow, and that turns the bow into the wind. You in fact are then drifting backwards, and the lines are then running away from you, and but so the drift chute is absolutely fantastic. All it is just an underwater parachute that you and I wouldn't be without it now. And I thoroughly recommend anyone who's serious about kayak fishing to invest in one of these. Okay, you're going to take a look at the fish finder now. I purchased this this year, 2013, early in the year, and it's a Garmin Echo 550C fish finder. It's a colourless fish finder, dual frequency, and I found it a real asset, to be honest. Apart from the fact that it does actually show up fish, like shoals of mackerel, herring, sand eels, pollock. Of course, it's great for actually knowing the depth of water that you're fishing in, and the structure down the bottom, whether it's rough ground, clean ground, whether it's sandy, whether it's muddy. And I have to say it's I mean, I did okay without it, but I wouldn't want to be without it now. I'm not saying you need a fish finder to catch fish, you don't, but it's really useful to get a picture of what's down there. Okay, so what I've got this mounted on down here. And on this kayak, this section I think was probably, this platform was probably designed to fit a fish finder, but rather than fit it direct to the platform, what I've done here, I've fitted a bit of this is known as a gear track, which at the time I had to import from America from the company called Kayak that make them. But you can get these in the UK now, which I'm pleased to say. So this is a 16-inch piece of gear track, and what it is fitted to that is called it's called a Kayak screw ball. This is a 1.5 inch ball which simply just screws into the gear track here, and that then fitted to that is a 1.5 inch double end ram socket, and then attached to the base of the fish finder is a 1.5 inch ram ball. Okay, so that's how I've got it fitted to the kayak, and of course it's adjustable. You can adjust it whichever way is suitable. So it's fairly simple to do, and as I say, I wouldn't want to be without the fish finder now. As regards to the electrics, what I've done, I've got it going through the platform here. This is I think it's known as a deck seal. I think the company's called Scanstrut or Scranstrut 16mm deck seal, which is that comes with 3 different size little rubber grommets there for whatever size wires you're needing to fit through it. So that is very easily fitted to the kayak here, and then plenty of marine sealant to keep it watertight. And that of course then goes down through into the kayak. 2 things. One, I've got the transducer fitted in here. What I did, I bought a transducer pad, and then just glued that to the base of the kayak using marine goop, and then bedded the transducer into the pad using more marine goop and pushing it down, making sure there's no air bubbles. And then in here I've got a battery box. Most people make their own battery box using something like a watertight food container. But I decided to invest in one of these. It's a Pelican 1120 case. I bought it as a job lot. Again, I imported it from America, but you can do it yourself. I think you can get these. You can get these Pelican cases. They come in different sizes, suit whatever size battery you use. And again, I found it's well worth the investment. A nice watertight battery box for the battery, and all I've done here is I've stuck some heavy-duty Velcro to the base of the kayak here, with the addition of some marine goop, and then just got some webbing and buckles and run underneath that just to strap the fish finder down. Okay, so that's the fish finder. Taking a look at navigation now. Originally I just had the compass, as you can see here, which was better than nothing. At least it meant that if I was out there and the fog rolled in, I knew which direction to head for to hit land. So again, a good safety feature to have on the kayak. However, this year what I've done, I've invested in a Garmin handheld GPS Map 78, and installed onto that via a micro SD card. I've also bought the Garmin Blue Charts G2 for the area that I like to fish. And just like the fish finder, I've also found this another great asset, really. You know, with the Blue Charts, rather than sort of, as I did in the past, just using landmarks, the compass to locate fishing marks, and now you know, I can go to these marks with far greater accuracy, and create waypoints to those marks. You know, and it's little things like little rough ground marks, fishing in pools, and the blue charts, they show all the different contours, and useful for selecting a mark to fish, you know, in strange ground that you don't know. So again, you know, it used to be okay without this, but now I've got these things, I wouldn't want to be without them, really. They are most definitely an asset to enhance your fishing experience. This just runs off 2 AA batteries, and I keep spare batteries in the dry box that we mentioned earlier, just in case. But apart from fishing, it's also a safety feature. If I'm out there and let's say the fog rolls in, I can get back to base with far greater accuracy than I can using the compass. And the other factor is, if you do go over and you can't get back on the kayak and you're in trouble, you know, you can use this to, and you can contact the rescue services. You can use this to give your current GPS coordinates. You know, you can tell them where you are and you know, what direction you're drifting in, and it could help the rescue services save you. So again, another great asset from point of view of fishing and of safety. To fit the handheld GPS to the kayak, once again I've used the gear track here. When I decided to fit the gear track, I knew that I would want to fit other devices, and although this is a handheld GPS, you know, which I can just pull out of the holder here, really I wanted it mounted somewhere on the kayak so I can just sit back in the seat and view it, and I can reach both this fish finder and the GPS quite easy. Well, I have to lean forward a little bit, but I can reach them without too much bother to turn them on or turn them off, or change the settings. But this is, again, it's down here. This is just this time it's a 1-inch Yakutak screwball that is just screwed to the gear track here, and just a 1-inch double arm socket. But what I've done, just to extend it a little bit higher, just try and get it out of the splash zone of the paddle. Although, to be honest, these screens still get splashed. You get a fish splashing about on board, and they seem to splash it more than when you're paddling. But just to extend it a little bit higher, I've doubled up on here. Just put two 1-inch double arm sockets to raise it a little bit higher, and then the actual GPS is fitted into a ram holder there, which you can get. This is the holder, and then to the back of that is just screwed a suitable 1-inch, which is made for this holder, 1-inch ball, which all fits to the double arm socket. So again, you know, very easy to do, particularly if you've got all this fitted. It saves having to keep screwing these balls into the kayak. You know, this track is just screwed down with stainless steel screws, washers and bolts, and then you know, using the Yakutak screw balls, you just screw these devices to it, and of course I've got room, if I want to fit even more bits and pieces. Taking a look at rods and reels here, of course this is very much a personal thing, but the only advice I can give really is, you know, this is a kayak you're fishing on, and therefore it's the length of the rod, and I would say absolute maximum 8 foot you would want. I wouldn't want to go fishing with rods longer. It would just be too awkward, because you can't stand up, too awkward to use. But what I tend to have for fishing at anchor, for slightly heavier fishing, I got a couple of this is a 7'6", 12 to 20 pound boat rod. It's just an Abu. This is an Abu 6000 reel, and this is another 7'6" boat rod with an Abu 6500 reel. They're fairly sporty rods. I mean, you can, you know, fish lighter, but this is mainly used for fishing bait on the bottom, where of course sometimes you have to use quite heavy leads, and they can cope with that. So I tend to use these if I'm going out bullhuss fishing or fishing for thornback rays, etc., or just fishing bait on the bottom. When fishing for like just jigging, light jigging for things like mackerel, herring, maybe pollock, I just use this is an 8-foot, I think it's a 15 to 50 gram rod, and it's a little Abu bait casting reel loaded with braid. Most times when I lure fish I always use braid, and a little bit of couple of foot of fluorocarbon leader on there, but actually on this rod, when I've been jigging, though it's a very light rod and a very small reel, I've actually you know, had quite sizable cod on it. So you know, these rods, I would just say go as light as you possibly can, really, and keep it sporty. For casting lures from the kayak, what I've got is a little this is again, it's a little 8-foot light spinning rod. It's about, I think, 10 to 40 grams rod, a 4,000 size spinning reel, again loaded with I think this is 20 pound braid, and I mainly use this for actually casting lures from the kayak on the drift. Could be metal lures, could be plugs, could be soft plastics, and again it's very sporty, and will handle quite large fish. So that's the rods and the reels that I tend to use. I usually always go out with four rods pre-prepared for the type of fishing I'm going to be using, and also it's quite useful to have a backup rod if you're fishing over rough ground and you get snagged, rather than the time it takes to reset up again. Just have another rod set up ready to just carry on fishing, particularly if the fishing's good and you don't want to waste the time sort of having to re-tackle up. So that's the rods and the reels that I tend to use for the fishing that I do down here. Just going to take a look at one or two bits and pieces now that are really useful when you're fishing. And the first thing I'm going to look at is the net. This is what's known as a scoop net. Just got a very short handle here, and it's got a bit of bungee there that you can connect it, keep it connected to the kayak in case you drop it in the water. You know, a lot of the fish, if you just pull it in mackerel or whatever, you don't need this, but you get a reasonable sized bass, you know, you can very easy to lose them close to the kayak. So this little short handled scoop net is very useful for you know, bringing fish in that you don't want to lose, bass, cod. I know out in the States they tend to use these fish grips, but I quite like the net. Only one slight problem with the net is you know, you get a fish you caught on a plug in this net, then the trebles tend to get tangled in the mesh here, which is a bit of a pain. But this net, I think it's a rubberized mesh, which is slightly easy to untangle the trebles. Although at times, you know, if you've got a fish flashing around here with a plug in its mouth, and the plugs it can get a bit twisted in it. But anyway, there you are. That's very useful. The other thing that I tend to keep with me, this is my priest. If I'm going to take a fish, I don't like them, you know, just dying, gasping for oxygen. I like to make a decision to take them, put them out of the misery, and that's what this is for. And all this is just a length cut from a broom handle. But I also use this as a measuring device. This is actually 40 centimeters, and that's the minimum size that I take bass. So it's quite useful to quickly pop this alongside the fish. Obviously, if it's well over, you don't need to do it, but just to make sure that the fish is big enough. There's other little markings on here. They're a bit faded now. I'm going to have to redo them. But there's other little markings there that I've got for other fish size limits. cod, pollock, whatever, for the type of fish I'm usually catch. So again, that's secured to the kayak with a bit of bungee cord. But yeah, just mainly to put the fish out of their misery quickly if you're going to decide to take them. Other useful little device is these little pliers here, which are used to, you know, sometimes useful to getting hooks out. The only mistake I've made with this, you can probably see, I didn't buy a stainless steel one, which I'm going to have to do because this one is just about had it. It's rusted up, and that's a mistake. No point having things like on board when you go out to sea unless they're stainless steel or plastic, really, because that's what happens. But I'm going to have to renew that quite soon. Now, one little extra that's very useful is this cutting board. This is like a cockpit cover that covers up a little area under here, which I think originally was designed to put a bit of tackle. But this is an idea I picked up from another blog when I first started out, and all it is, this originally was to be for a cup holder, but it's now used for the compass. And all this is just a bit of a kitchen chopping board. It's about 8mm chopping board you can get from the supermarket for next to nothing, and just secured to this this cockpit cover. It's really useful when you're fishing bait. You've got a nice solid cutting board to cut up your strips of squid, mackerel, or whatever you're using. Okay, so that's just one or two extras that I got on the kayak that I found say very useful. Going to look at safety equipment now. Over the last 3 years, I've slowly built up my my safety equipment that I've got on board. I'm just going to go through one or two things that I've currently got. This is not in any particular order of importance. They're probably all as important as each other, but no particular order. First thing I've got inside there, which I keep permanently in the kayak just in case, is a spare paddle. Although the paddle I use, of course, is strapped down, you know, it's just a precaution. Should I lose the paddle and you know, I'm out at sea, at least I've got a spare one which I can go to quickly. And now, of course, clothing is important, and most people tend to serious kayak fishermen tend to have a dry suit. Which again is important, particularly in the winter. You know, when the water temperature is cold, should you go overboard. But of course, you know, I've seen many kayakers I have in the summer season just going out without even what we're looking at here, and that is a PFD, a personal flotation device. And I certainly wouldn't want to go out without one. This flotation, I think it's a palm, I can't pronounce what it's called, but it's a palm one. It's got things that come with it. You know, you've got a whistle, which can be useful if you need to draw attention. But I have done self-rescue practice with this on, and there's no doubt about it, when you're in the water, it definitely keeps you up, keeps you afloat. You know, got a lot of buoyancy built into that, and to me it's a must. I certainly wouldn't go out without one. What I also keep, the whistle that comes with it, what I also take with me and keep it permanently in one of the pockets of the PFD is a knife, a stainless steel knife. And what I keep this for, you know, if you go overboard and you get tangled in some of these lines you've got on the kayak or whatever, at least you've got something in your pocket to cut yourself free. So there's another thing. The thing we're looking at here, this red, is known as a paddle float, and what this basically does, if you go overboard and you're struggling to get back on, do a self-rescue, what you can do is you can put this onto the end of the paddle here and blow it up, and what it does, then it fits tightly over the end of the paddle, and then you can put the paddle across the kayak and wedge it under some of the sort of strap down bungee cords there, and you can use it as an outrigger. In other words, you can if you're in the water, you can put your leg over with this on, your leg over the paddle, and because this is blown up, it gives you that resistance, something to push against, to help you get back onto the kayak. So I keep that with me on the kayak, and we spoke earlier when I looked at the dry box here, what this strapping is used for, and that's what I use that for. I strap that back there, so you know, if I'm over on the kayak, I can easily pull it out and put it over the paddle to help me get back on if I need to. Next, this is a bilge pump. You know, you never know. You know, we launch these kayaks, we land kayaks, you know, on sort of stony rough ground. You can never be, though you can check the base of your kayak, and these if you buy a decent kayak, these kayaks are you know, pretty sturdy, but you never know if you might get a little bit of a crack in the kayak and you find yourself out there slowly taking in water. You know, at least you've got this to, okay, you can't paddle and work one of these pumps at the same time. However, you know what it can do, it could buy you some time. And I think these pump out water at quite a high rate. So again, another little feature worth having on board. I must admit, I never used to have one of these, and I've been out there with next to no communication to the shore, and most of the fishing I do is on my own. So, you know, not really good, but it was on my shopping list, and I've now managed to get them. And what it is, it's the VHF radio, ship to shore radio. You can't just buy these and go out and use it. You have to get what is known as an operator's license, and it's the RYA, the Royal Yacht Association, that run these courses. They're one-day courses where you get you do the course, you take a little exam at the end, and you get your operator's certificate to be able to use them. So again, you know, these got, you know, there's a button on it. This is an ICOM ICM23. It's got a button on it which you can press, go straight to channel 16. When it could, you know, you could pick up ships in the nearby vicinity that are monitoring channel 16, or get straight to the Coast Guard. Now, at worst, if you haven't got one of those, you know, there's the mobile phone in a dry bag. Okay, it's better than nothing. But you know, if you go overboard and you know you manage to get this out, you can't get put back on. It's only got to touch that water, and it could render it absolutely useless. So better than nothing, but you know, not as good as the VHF radio, but they're better than nothing. But one little tip, and it's out on YouTube, not just for kayaking, for any situation really. If you register 112, the emergency service, that bypasses. I can't quite remember how it works, but it's where you're very, very quickly getting through to the emergency services. So that's well worth looking into. So if you just go on to YouTube and just Google, just YouTube, put a search in there, registering for 112 emergency services, there's a great video out there that explains that. Quite useful, but as I say, not as good as the VHF radio. First aid box. You know, operating with knives and hooks and God knows what when you're fishing. Handy to have that on board, and that's one of the things I keep in the dry box. This here is a throw line, which what I do, I attach it to my waist. It's got some rope in there which just pulls out, and then it's clipped onto the kayak. So if I do go on board, you know, the idea is that I'm not going to lose contact with the kayak, because the kayak obviously can act as a bit of if you can't get back on, it's better to be hanging on to the kayak rather than, you know, out in the open water. So that's quite useful. We already looked at the drift chute. Okay, you know, mainly used for fishing, but could be quite useful. You know, if you're in trouble for some reason, you can't paddle or whatever, you can put the drift chute out. That's going to slow you down until you can get rescue services can get to you. And of course the anchor, apart from fishing, it could be good if again for some reason you can't paddle, you got to stay put rather than just drift. You can drop the anchor and at least you're staying in one place while the rescue services can get to you. And the other thing we've already spoke of, I think I've already mentioned them, and that's we've already spoke about how the GPS could be really useful from a safety point of view, being able to give out your GPS coordinates to the rescue services. So that's the list of, that's the sort of safety equipment I've accumulated over the years. I know there's more out there. There are other things that I can add to that list, but that's where I am at the moment. So I hope you find that useful. Okay, so that's my current kayak fishing setup. I hope those of you out there that are just starting in the sport, you know, maybe you can pick up some ideas from that you might find useful. If there's anything that I haven't explained on this setup, you know, just contact me and let me know, and I'll explain it via the comments. So thanks for watching, and as I say, hope you find that useful for your own kayak fishing.